Okay, hello everyone. The title of this evening's episode is A World That Couldn't Fit in Our Eyes. And I would like to kindly ask the listeners to forget the additional noises and to focus on the concepts and the images they paint. And that really we are just voices in the void for a little while. I thought about how interesting it is that we are most immediately in a position where we are small. The small in the big. And so it seems that we know we are small, yet we seek the more. And so I feel really what's happening is that the body feels small because it has to be separate from the world to exist to itself. But the mind is acting as your whole moment. It is like the mind is the glow of the moment. Okay, I think this is a better song. The world is too big. It can't fit in our eyes. We know this. Very instantly, we know the world doesn't fit in our eyes. Yet, we are trying to conceptually fit the world in our eyes. That seems to be the attempt of knowledge. Really, two angles. We are going from the small to the big and from the big to the small, you know? And everything can be seen in this relationship. For me, really, life is a point, and there is multiple axi or axis point. There's one axis point with different axes. I don't know what it is. Axis is what. But the point is that from that central point, many dualities emerge. You know, I have had many memories in this life. Everybody has. And I can tell you, anytime I remember, like if somebody came up to me and was like, okay, you know, what did you do yesterday, you know? Or what are you gonna do tomorrow? In both angles, there is a dualism. That means visualization, memory, and I don't know, even unknown witness, where we don't know if the unknown witness is a visualization or it's a memory. We don't know. The species doesn't know if if we are our visualization is our memories, or in some sense our memories are being visualized. We're on that thing. Somebody did this social experiment. I believe they did it in some university in I think it was in China, somewhere like that, where there was a person where they put his hand on a table and they put a fake hand, right? And they told the person to look at that fake hand, right? So their hand was beside a fake hand, but the person was looking at that fake hand. And the person was paid, I don't know, what is it, like 10, 20 minutes to look at that hand. And the person's looking at this fake hand that looks like his own hand, but it's a fake hand. And out of nowhere, the social experimenter just suddenly, I don't know, with a pen or a fork or something, stabs the fake hand, and this person responds to it. This person literally gets up as if it was like it's the person's own hand. And it's this very unique phenomena where our attention goes, it becomes. I find this is why it's very hard for people to change, really. You know, it's as if like the attention is tunneling, so it goes back to the same tunnel. A technique I implement in these talks and in other areas of my own life, what I will tell you is that sometimes I repeat something until I have felt I have seen enough angles of it. That means think as if somebody gave you you were an archaeologist, you had an artifact, and I don't know, let's say there were 5 archaeologists and they were passing around this artifact or something, you know? And so it's like the amount of time it takes to look at that artifact for every person can be different. For each archaeologist can be different. It really, your relationship with the living world is based on what you see out of it. For me, it's phenomenal to notice that everything that we see is a little part. It's a little tiny percentage of what is actually here. Excuse me. To continue. The world is too big to fit in our small eyes, and our small eyes are making conclusions. These conclusions are becoming, are through the, you can say they're becoming knowledge as they are repeated. That means if somebody says the color red is truth, and generations of people are like, yeah, red is truth, yeah, red is truth. And then it becomes, red becomes the truth. Or if somebody says blue is the truth, blue becomes the truth, but on some level, each is their own dimension. It's as if you cannot judge colors. Have you noticed? A person may have their personal judgment. They may say like the color blue is evil, or the color, I don't know, yellow is cruel, you know? But colors are in some sense they are just color. They are like the alphabet. They are a basic level of being. And so I would say when it comes to the linguistic simulation, when it comes to how we're responding, it's like the light of a giant world enters the small eyes of a creature to translate as if the light enters the eyes, hits the brain, and the brain suddenly animates psychology. It's as if like, how have we all not noticed that our psychologies are solar powered? Without light, what is there to see? You know, who knew psychology is the gift of the sun to man? To live as an object, the options are limited. It is either into a collective position, a singular position, pretty much a visible singular position. I mean, these are the four options here, I'll say it again. We have the idea of the collective. We have the idea of the individual. We are right now a manifest individual, visible individual. There is the idea of the soul, whatnot, the Atman. This we have the invisible individual. And then we have the idea of the collective, the visible collective, or the invisible collective. That means the moment you consider an idea of a soul, you in some sense have also allowed that idea for spaces. That means the moment we see souls to individual, let's say humans, then humanity has a soul. Why not? You know, the planet has a soul, the universe has a soul, everything has a soul, do you see? Once the permission is granted, it's authorized to all. because it's an abstract positioning from the beginning if the soul is trying to be received as an individual movement. Now, what's interesting is that the invisible individual and the visible collective may equate. The invisible individual and the invisible collective may equate. But the visible individual can only equate the visible collective. That means the purpose of an object is either to use, to be used, or to no longer be an object. Imagine like a person was about to throw, like, I don't know, an object away, and right before, let's say you threw a can out or something. Let's say before you were about to throw something, the object was like, don't throw me. You know, the object suddenly... Imagine the object, like those Disney movies, suddenly started to speak and be like, hey man, don't throw me. I still have a purpose. You know, you can find a purpose for me. You know, and the person's like, no man, you're an object that's done. This is a silly metaphor I'm using, but just my point is that stay individual, become collective, or move beyond object and subjecthood ultimately. And that is the most unique time. I don't know what that would look like for you. You know, it's like all human beings are living in a codependence. You need a mind to know you're a body. You need a body to have a mind. So ultimately, it's our response to a world that couldn't fit in our eyes, to extend the world, to become the world, or to have never been here. There's a dimension of perception where there is shape. There's a dimension of perception where there is space. There's a dimension of perception where there is substance. And there's a dimension which is in some sense color. And I would say these are for the visual perception. We find these in the visual perception. Anything you look at, the substance of course comes across to us as color. So you can say it comes to that, but space, shape, and let's say substance, color, space, shape, and color. Ultimately, these three things in the outer realms in front of the eyes of the human being are what needs to be used to, pretty much like how our ancestors found a method to generate fire, smashing stones together, moving sticks or whatnot. So similarly, we have to move these three dimensions. And so how the human mind has moved these is that we have given them stories. That means substances, there were the 5 elements, but now currently they stand as the periodic table, Each substance having a different color, a different symbol, you can say. Then we have stories of space. I would say what has happened in the space. So it would pretty much be how we got our shape, how we got a space in that shape, and how in some sense there was something to fill out the space with the substance. And I would say if we took shape as geometry, design, shape is in between substance and space. So literally, any object, if anybody looks at, like for example, anyone who's listening to me, look at 2 objects and a space in between 2 objects wherever you are. I don't know if you're, for example, like I'm seeing the object of like my computer screen having a space for my keyboard. And I ask myself, how do I know my keyboard, there's a space between my keyboard and the computer screen? The computer screen has a geometrical outline, the edge of the computer screen, which I'm tapping now. The keyboard has an edge. So technically we have an edge as well, right? But we call it skin, not noticing that edge technically is a line. So what I'm saying is that geometry grants space as there is different densities of substance. What does that mean? That means we can't define space and space. I can't believe I didn't catch on to this sooner. Space and geometry, space and shape. Let's keep it there. Without a shape, we can't know there is space. That means we can't call outer space technically space if we can't see its edge. We don't know. We don't know if For me, geometry, the shape of things, has been crucial. But I remember I was watching a YouTube video, there was this next level genius kid in Africa, where The kid didn't have resources, but the kid was a master painter. As if like when you have nothing, you still have your senses, your sensory perception, right? And it was as if this kid was looking at life like a movie. Do you know? When I went to film school, um, for film production, I would tell you that there were many moments where it was like looking at the editing of a clip over and over and over again, you know? And then there was, in some sense, even a colorist, a friend of mine. And so I could tell you that it was as if there was so much time going on how you can say beautiful a film looks on screen. Then I wondered how many of my fellow classmates, just people, would go outside and they would see that the same beauty. Do you know? Imagine seeing the color of a sunset and then seeing, the color of a film footage of a sunset. You know? So color was being watched at a very intense level, and everything has color. You know? I mean, depends on your site, but I'm telling you, there is something about it being just another classification system. That means when I even think about everything, like every object, if they have the same color, just like the dimension of time, we have like a three-dimensional. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Imagine a person goes into a room and on the next day goes into the same room. The only thing separating those two moments is time. Imagine if they went to the room and did the same thing. Now, if there were two objects of the same color, the only thing is separating them is their shape, is their outline, is their form. So we can say form is the higher dimension of color, you know? In the same way that time is a higher dimension than the three dimensions. You see, you can apply multidimensionality to everything because ultimately there was a point our species didn't have language. Some say it was like, what was it, like 250,000 years ago or something? There was a time where the inner realms were active, yet there was no way of communicating yet. That means the first creature who spoke, that means speaking happened way before hearing. That means there was meaning way before there was language. A cave, let's say a caveman wanted to warn another caveman of danger. The caveman would be like, like some sort of shouting or something, But there were no words, there was the meaning though. So I would say our bodies are growing in time, our minds are growing beyond time. And the soul doesn't need to grow, it is how space is here. There's so many ways the world can just be divided. Think of like how many ways a person can cut a cake. How many different kind of shapes the person can add. But these three, I think anybody focuses on them, they attain some sort of mastery. Something comes from it. If you make the object of your meditation space, you will notice the shape and substance of things, the shape and color of things, let us say. Wow, we can even make this a triangle of shape, space, and let's say color for now, same as substance. This is for the visual perception. I'm considering these three guys. So we say shape, space, color. If we are looking at it through the view of shape, there is color and space, really of what we get to see. So if you are a creature of shape, you're probably concerned about your space and concerned about the substance of things, how things are really beyond their beyond that shape, I would say. I would say from space, if you were a space being, if you were just space, let's say you were just a sight in space, you know. You would notice form and color. There is no such thing as space. Space is an illusion. There's just shape. Shape containing shape. That means imagine like two concentric circles, like two circles, one inside the other circle, and that space in between. That space in between the circle technically doesn't exist. It's just two circles. When we can't notice it, we think it's endless space. So I would say there's a huge probability the world is really, the cosmos is like an onion. I think we thought it was spelled Orion. I think it was spelled onion. Oh man. You know, I could totally see a vegetable market of galactic beings, you know? It's like, you know, fresh onions from Orion. Oh man. It's like peanuts from the Pleiades. Or I don't know, apples from Andromeda, whatever this metaphor is going too far. Space. Imagine space squared equals water, let's say we pour water, which is a substance, into a cup. So the water enters shape. So the shape is a superior dimension than the substance. And then we say space is a superior dimension than shape. But I think that's wrong. I think there has to be the shape, which provides the space, which then provides an ability for the substance to exist in the space. So maybe when a person gives something in their life shape, they create a new space. And that new space gets filled with a new dimension of life, new color or vision of life. So really, the human being actually has to master shaping. Not shape, shifting. Every shape is shifting naturally. That's called evolution. But it's like we're on a slow level, everybody's shape shifting, but it's taken a really long time. Technically we're all shapeshifters, but we don't notice it. So we have this shape shifting, I would say, but here's the thing. If the shape is there and everything is shifting, technically we can't tell if we are changing or the world is changing. Sometimes when I get sad, I can't tell if it's me being sad or if it's something from the world. An awareness to shape. So technically, in the outer realm, we require to become um, a conscious designer species. We have to consciously design our lives, yet also keep in mind everything in the world changes. Even in the word shape, we got the word ape, you know? We are shapes, guys, literally, you know? Just put a dash between the H and the A. We are evolving shapes because the ape is a shape. Humanhood is a shape. The human idea is a shape. So pretty much there's no such thing as knowledge. There's just groups of attention focused on different shapes. So let's say we got to be aware of how things are shaped in our outer realms and how we are shaped in our inner realms. And I think if these two are covered, most human beings will function efficiently. That means how you are how you're existing before you move and how you exist after you move. The mind is like the preview of what else there is in the cosmos. And it's remarkable. Every person's brain right now somehow so easily is a character generating machine. You know, this everybody's brain is everybody is they're subconsciously they're functioning at a super genius level. This is a brain. Do you know this is an organ? Isn't it fascinating that an organ is doing such complex world, overlaying itself on a self it can never know? Because light enters our eyes and it's light plus brain equals our perception. We never know what's there without us in the equation. All right. There is an effort that must be made in every lifetime. Whatever the person sees, reality is the priority. And if reality is a co-creative phenomenon, it should be our priority how we are creating moments. For every moment we create becomes a memory for a future self. The mind has a habit, I would say, of trying to own everything. And unless the forgiveness of the fool isn't within you, you can't even forgive your own eyes in the inner realms. Because the eyes can move way more extremely, you know? So many intense imagery in our world. It has journeyed here. You know, people don't realize it, that everything in front of you has gone through a journey. That when it comes to human life, whether we like it or not, there's an interconnectivity. That means think of a bus driver that makes a mistake. All the people in the bus feel it, you know? And I feel all of our minds are like airplanes, which we are all passengers in. That means when people are listening to this talk, for example, I'm like the pilot. You know, when people are listening, for example, to the president of a nation speaking, that president is the pilot. Do you see? Or the person sees like Albert Einstein speak, Albert Einstein is the pilot. All of this is just where the attention is going. And so more and more as we mature from a singular individualism to a multidimensional collectivity, it means the less judgment, the more opportunity. That means there would be no, imagine in the future, like it might not be as so easy to get rid of good and bad, but imagine in the future, it's as if some people see something bad or evil happen and they're like, oh my god, this is level 725 of evil, you know? Like we have a database of all the different ways where instead of judging energy as good and bad, we are documenting its movement. That means I feel that this should be kind of ingrained in children. Children should develop a skill of noting the important. You know, because we feel that we are in a world, we're here to use it. We're treating the world like resources. We don't realize we gotta carry the torches of the past, or the technologies don't continue. And it is maybe too soon. You know, it's this strange situation where the mind has, for due to technology, found a desire to move faster than the body. This is problematic. And the only solution is people are going to get tired of one body. In the future, not now. Now people are we are very blessed in 2020. But in 2220, I would say, that would be a time where it's very hard. It's as if like you imagine seeing a poverty commercial of a starving child, and some part of your human soul feels ashamed to be a human being and still feeling that happening. You know, so it's like it's the rage of the justice of what the future deserves that should not be disturbed. You see, I have since my childhood, I wasn't conscious of it until 2011. But some people say that insight finds you in different moments of your life, but they don't say that it finds you from in different moments of your life from different moments of your life. And I noticed that we have been given the wrong impression that we are one person, self-help. No, 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 no. We are a field of conscious mind activity. Nobody is just an individual if they close their eyes. You see that character in a story, it's like a film is made of frames. And so it's as if we are becoming conscious on the level of the frame, yet we are trying to also be conscious on the level of the film, you know? And right now, human consciousness is in some sense individual, so individual. Right now, it's physiological games. It's boring. We have to first attain a global physiological victory, then a global psychological victory. Then we get closer to self-actualizing the species. And that would mean we will not fear speed and we will not fear multidimensionality. They're in one of my favorite narratives is this Japanese show called Shingeki no Kyojin. And in it, there's a character, and there was a scene where their character moved in a scene where there was no dialogue, nothing. It was like a nanosecond of a scene where it was just character movement. But the way that animators had drawn the character, the intensity was so profound where I can tell you this whole life is like an intense stare. It's that we are fearing pushing towards the future, so we are allowing ourselves to be pulled by the past. Every human brain has a capacity to pour out endless geometry. You think evolution has brought forth such incredible design for it to break? That means that is the fascinating thing. That is God from I can't, like, I don't know how to say it, like, Meister Eckhart has this quote, this Christian mystic. He says, the same eyes I see God are the same eyes God sees me. So individuals are either interpreting themselves as collective first, then individual, or individual, then collective. People who are religious, they consider themselves collective first, so their individuality, all they need is hope and faith. You know, the collective's got you. But the individual who wants to, in the outer realms, contribute to the collective, faith is not enough. Faith is for your inner realms. Faith is not a physical action. Faith is concentration at outcome. So when it comes to the outer realms, there requires response. And that scene, I don't know if I can find it, but literally, there was this character known as Commander Erevin, and what he does is that with an intense force, he just pushes back the opponent. And the opponent, from the eyes of this person, just sees the defeat. And that was what I saw of the effort of human beings alive now. I honestly feel every human being should write at least one book in this lifetime. Just one book of what they saw, and just it's like the roars of truth on the page before the eyes transition out of here. I've envisioned it in the future. I personally didn't have the convenience. But in the future, I've seen that there's a spherical, in my science fiction, I've shared this idea that I've seen a sphere, small ping pong sized sphere around everyone. This sphere is going to be everyone's personal Jarvis. And what that means is, for the first time, the task of the human being becomes accompanied by AI. And it's this strange thing that back in the day, man had dominion. Like we see, for example, you see, for example, a pet owner. The pet owner has to be at first intense with the pet until the pet, let's say if it's a dog, for example, dogs are pack animals. The pack animal like treats you as the alpha dog of the house, right? So I would say when it comes to a world that was way more multidimensional, which in some sense breathes in folklore and legend, there were human beings and there were points, they were just beings who had an ability to recognize that from themselves they could imbue space that others could animate. And I want to say what this is that if it is consciously done, it has to be done by an unconscious tour guide. If it is to be unconsciously done, the person will do it without ever knowing they are doing it. That means many people have looked for God, you know, for evidence for God. But the evidence for God is the one looking, which prior to the idea of man-made, which was man-made, it was part and parcel of the great void. So believe it or not, our species has so much more to learn about emptiness, you know. One thing is very clear: energy can be directed. And because energy can be directed, we must use it. We must use our ability that we have control over things. And the whole thing I was saying about the, in some sense, pet owner analogy is that your mind can also display its own dominance. I wouldn't say dominance, but the roars of its nature. That means for the lion, there is no uh, alpha, beta, you know. There was another one. Alpha, beta. It's not gamma, but it's another one. These are classifications of social dominance. So technically, it would be invisible dominance. And invisible dominance comes only by how much aware you are of the invisible. So there is no such thing as think of dominance, think of like the lion is the king of the jungle until we build an advanced robot, that robotic lion, bigger than any lion, you know, which, you know, even its roar is louder and whatever. Like, do you see what I mean? So it's just what's occupying space. Many people don't realize that in any sort of traveling effort, whether in the outer realms or inner realms, by entering a space, you change it. So nobody ever enters anybody's space. They enter the other's space through their space. So technically, they see we see others through ourselves. And if this point is not considered in navigation in the inner realms, pretty much we will not as a species have an ability to watch our imagination like a film. Anybody who can watch their imagination like a film, you could be anywhere in the world and you will realize the advanced antenna you have. I am telling you, just people think the purpose of meditation is not to have thoughts. I would say when you sit down to meditate, you should watch your thoughts. Not try to have an opinion on them, not try to control them or wield them. First, watch them. As you watch, you get familiar. So I personally am familiar with the speed of my own thinking, you know? So I know any time when in my inner realms, there's a sort of inner dialogue that is moving way faster than I normally speak. I know that it's like a subconscious thing. That means it's a message in the bottle in my subconscious, you know, or it's a dream in reality. And so that dream in reality is as mysterious as reality even existing when there can be even a dream. So you see, either the illusion is the winner or the truth. Either everything is real or nothing is. And because there is a voice here, that is the reality. That means when it comes to the unknown, your voice is more firm. How your voice and attention and observance moves is more firmer ground than the ground you're standing on right now. Back in the day, the sharpness of your sword was important. In today's time, in 2020, the sharpness of your attention is important. And people should train wielding their attention. I playfully sometimes on the bus, on the subway, try to see how much I can see. I have challenged my senses often, especially my visual sense and my peripheral. So imagine, how would I say it? Imagine you just wanted to see how it's the same method as trying to see how fast you can read, but it's trying to see how much you can see if you are to run, or if you are to just sit in one position on a bus or a train and be like, how much can you just notice from the world you see, you know? Technically, looking out of a window of a moving vehicle is kind of like TV, you know? And the cool thing is, everybody's attention moves differently. It's like on a microcosmic level, we're like X-Men. I mean, honestly, what can 8 billion creatures on a rock do? They can either build something, or they could communicate, or they could do nothing, or they could close their eyes, and as the body does nothing, the mind could do things. That means in the future, there may be an opportunity. Let's say somebody doesn't like their life, you know? So what they do, imagine, is they go into this pod. This is really sci-fi, but imagine like in the future, the person goes into some pod where the body stops aging uh, quickly, you know, and the person experiences cyberspace life, and meanwhile, the outer world is changing. It's pretty much the whole freezing thing. When if you are to freeze a person in ice and time goes forth and they don't change, but it's like a similar thing is trying to be implemented, but the person is actually alive in cyberspace. You know, because whether our bodies move or not, we know the mind has a life. That's what dreams are. That means whether you're conscious or not, the mind generates image. That's what dreams mean. Dreams mean you're thinking without realizing it, you know? But thinking means technically nothing, because thought is attention. So we can say it's all about how attention has to be the space before it can move in the space. So it's like the human brain is copy pasting the world in front of the eyes, and from that copy pasted world is extracting a self, and from that, holding on to just that first copy pasted world, it's been updated. So you can say the child's brain from the, as Jacques Lacan says, the mirror effect. Let's say you're a young child, you look in the mirror and you also have a personality, your earliest memory. That means your earliest sense of self and the world, there was a world. So technically, there is no sense of self. There is a copy paste of that, of a world, and then as self is kind of like what am I saying? Cookie cutter, cookie cuttered out, you know, um, out of this copy pasted out of this copy pasted outer realms, it's all updates being made to that first world. This is how the inner child remains. So you can say that decency is based on how much you're still in touch with the world of your first self and how much you're still updating that world. So do you see what I mean, guys? I'm saying that the brain is not doing a lot of work. The brain did a lot of work once, and then it's micro updating that giant work it did, you know? And I would say that's the first how, if somebody just remembers, anybody can write down in the chat section, you know, remember your earliest memory. You're going to realize you suddenly woke up into a personality in this lifetime. You awoke to your mind, yet you were born to your body. The mind is the grand mystery in which the body is running in and towards and beyond. The small efforts in big worlds inevitably become big efforts, which become sorry guys, it's pretty late here. Small efforts in big worlds. Technically based on, we have to first see how big the world is to know how small we are. We have to see how strong the world is and then know how weak we are, you know. That means just like you can't know a person from one moment, people shouldn't judge themselves from one moment of their life, you know. That means what's pretty cool is it takes a lifetime to realize why we were here, you know. And it's funny, it's like they said, when we're young, we don't have wisdom, we have energy. When we're old, we don't have energy, we have wisdom. And we're like, what the fuck? I feel the healthiest thing we can do to occupy, to ensure the psychological safety of the species, we can't look for a purpose, we have to design it. In the outer realms, that's our only option. In the inner realms, you can not be a self. So there's that, you know. Anyways, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. And wonder about the world. It may not fit in our eyes now, but we may realize that the whole world is our eyes, you know. This body is technically a part of the world and we're being it, so what is stopping us from being the whole thing? You know, perhaps there's an energetic way we can still endure as consciousness. And a species in the middle of this also has to display its greatest potential before the curtain's pulled. You know, there's that too. Anyways, thanks for listening. I'll be on Discord for those interested.